My boyfriend was a heroin addict at the time. I was living in squats and squalor and horrible places and hard to let flats and, on the 20th floor of a tower block in Bow. And I was living with some really rough people. I'd been in 2 homeless hostels for 2 years. I had experienced the dark side of life. And as exciting as it was and as adventurous as it all became, I wanted more for myself. I'd been brought up in a quite well-to-do family, and this is absolutely not where I was meant to be. And I just had a spiral down, and I hit rock bottom, and I had a conversation with myself. I sort of bounced back and thought, you know what, you could do something stupid. 100% you can do something stupid. You're very capable of that. Or you could do something quite useful, positive, and just do this rally school thing because you've always wanted to do it. Just get it done, and then you can consider doing something stupid.
What a moment.
So I phoned 192 and said, I want to be a rally driver. Type it in.
I'm Paul Scolfort, and this is Powerful. In this series, I come clean about my own sobriety and the journey it took for me to get here. In each episode, I will speak to a special guest about their addictions and how they achieve sobriety and how they maintain a happy lifestyle today. With today being World Mental Health Day, I have such a great guest, Penny Mallory. She's a keynote speaker and an authority on mental toughness. She's the first female WRC racing driver for Ford. At the age of 42, she stepped in the boxing ring twice, and she's got an incredible challenge coming up, which you'll find out about. So in some of these episodes, there will be discussions of alcohol misuse, drugs, sexual abuse, suicide, and some other heavy topics. So please take care when listening. Penny, thank you so much for coming on to this episode for World Mental Health Day. It's amazing to have someone on who is an expert in mental toughness.
I'm really excited about it. I don't know what we're going to cover, but I'm really, really excited to have been invited. So thank you.
You're welcome. I've got so many questions about mindset, mental toughness. But I'd love to start to know a bit about you first, for the audience as well. Where are you from and how do you see your upbringing?
I was born in Folkestone in Kent. I was the 6th child of my mother, but only 2 survived. So I was her last child. I didn't know that for a long time. And I grew up in what actually would look on the outside like a very privileged upper middle class, I guess you would have called it in those days. Nice house, nice car on the drive, the odd summer holiday, a little bit of private education. Honestly, from my life would have looked fabulous to anyone looking at my life. But walk inside my house and it was a different story. And of course, when you grow up with stuff, you don't know that it's odd until you've left it and you go, oh, that really was weird. So there was I had a brother who I didn't get on with as a kid. I had a father who I thought was the bee's knees, but I was scared of him. He was very tall. He was very stiff upper lip. He was very, I don't know. He didn't hit me or anything, but he was a scary man, and you had to do as you were told.
Like in the sense of like an old Victorian or authoritarian person.
Very old school.
Yeah.
And so you did as you were told. So I was always in fear of him.
Yeah.
And my mum, bless her, was an alcoholic. And she was a manic depressive, and she was a very severe manic depressive. When I grew up, I understood possibly what had driven her to the illness that she had. She had a terrible life. But of course, in the 60s and 70s, when I'm growing up with a manic depressive alcoholic and a scary dad and weird brother and I didn't really know how to deal with it because I now know I wasn't parented normally, but my mum was. And if you have any familiarity with this horrible disease, I know they call it bipolar now, but I'm going to stick with manic depressive. You go from suicidal lows to manic highs. The manic highs were way worse because people stopped taking their drugs to lower their mood because it's fun up there.
And it lasts for hours and hours.
Well, it used to last for days and weeks sometimes. Yeah. And you lose all your inhibitions. You spend lots of money. You do crazy things. And when your kids are at school and it gets back to the school, what your mum's been up to, that's not good for the kids.
No.
So in the old days, they used to literally come along with a white van and section you and put my mum in the vehicle and took her to what we would call in those days the loony bin, which was a massive psychiatric hospital, Victorian style, mile-long corridors, and she would be administered with some really brutal treatment. So there was some very raw, ugly electric shock treatment stuff that they did. All that appeared to do to me was make her lose more memory.
Yeah.
Didn't really fix her or do anything positive. I'm sure it's more sophisticated now, but I don't think it was then. And the drugs that she would be given would lower her mood or lift her mood or whichever it was. But the side effects were horrible.
And was she taken away for long periods of time?
I recall 4 to 6 weeks. I was a kid. It's difficult as a kid, isn't it, to know what timescales are. But it was sort of on a 3-month cycle, as I recall. There might be some longer periods and some shorter periods, but it was, as I remember it, it was pretty constant through my growing up years. Yeah. So when my mum was in hospital, I was at home with my dad and my brother, and that was uncomfy. I never felt comfy in my own skin. I never felt like I belonged. Didn't know, couldn't work out who I was. I just felt super uncomfortable as a kid.
Was that from an early age?
From as long as I can remember. I never knew what to do with myself. I never knew who I was and what I liked and what I didn't like. I was just a bit uneasy.
Yeah.
I can see now why, but at the time I didn't understand that. So I think what happened was that I started to push boundaries and I think kids do this anyway, to find out where the limits are. And sometimes the limits I would push too much. So I ended up running away a lot because I thought, that's cool. If I run away, I'll get attention. I kept running away to the same place every time. And I'll never work that out. Nothing worked. I didn't get the attention I was seeking. And by 14, and there was some other weird stuff going on in my house as well. By 14, I'm like, I really don't like any of this. I know that I'm quite grown up in my mind. I had to grow up quite quickly in my head. I said, I'm out of here. And I left at 14. I never went home again.
Was there an actual pinnacle moment? Because that is a massive move for a 14-year-old. Even if you're scared, uncomfortable, you're going into the unknown, aren't you?
Yeah, but so when I was super uncomfortable, it was probably under 10. From 10 to 14, I felt a bit invincible. I was like, stuff the world. I was getting angry with what was going on, and my personality started to develop. So then I became the class clown for a bit, and then I was the really shy kid for a bit, and I was still just trying to work out, I'll try a bit of this, I'll try a bit of that. So I got quite ballsy at one point. And I think that must have been sort of leading up to the point where I was feeling like I'm in control of my life. I'm in more control than anyone else seems to be in control of my life. Yeah. I'm better off on my own. I'm pretty sure I can think straight. And you do grow up very quick when you haven't got the normal parenting, I now know. So at 14, I felt really grown up. I'd stayed in a school hostel bit for a while, but I was behaving pretty poorly at this point. And in the end, my friend's family said, come and stay with us. So I stayed with them it wasn't quite a year. When I'd done all my exams, I failed most of them. I went to London. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go and find the streets paved with gold.
Did you know anybody in London? And did the period you spent at that house of your friend, did you see stability there?
Well, what I thought was, this is the perfect family. And the woman, Harriet, who took me in, I would put my whole life down to her. You know, she was the saviour of me. She was very liberal. She would let us drink and smoke and behave like kids. We didn't have to hide anything. We could do it in front of her. And I thought that's quite a cool way to parent, because I've been hiding everything all of my life. But of course, every family has its dysfunctions. And, you know, once you live inside a family, you think, okay, maybe every family is a bit weird. But they were amazingly generous to me, beautiful people. And so when I went to London, I knew one person, which was this family's friends, and I stayed there for just a few weeks before the father kept coming into the room and being weird, so I had to leave there. And of course, then I had nowhere to go. So I was sofa surfing, I was staying on people's sofas, and if I could pick up a boyfriend somewhere, I'd stay with him for a while.
As long as he had an apartment.
Yeah, so as long as he had somewhere to stay. So I was just literally moving around, very
Surviving,
transient.
really.
And I had a couple of boxes, and they just went with me everywhere. So in those days, you used to get, I think, 50 quid a month from the government if you'd left home under 16. That would never happen now. But I don't know how I lived on that money.
Did you, because I was just recalling myself back at that age, and I was pushing boundaries as well, getting in trouble, driving cars that wasn't mine, and hanging out in a place called Romford, where they had a water fountain, and skinheads and punks used to be. And I used to hang around with them. I wasn't one of them. And I used to watch them steal cars and do all crazy stuff. And I knew deep down they weren't my people, but I felt kind of safe with them. It was
I understand entirely what you're saying. Yeah. I dabbled in all the subcultures that were going to see which one fitted. I had a little bit of punk and a little bit of skinhead and a little bit of everything, rockabilly, and oh my God, I look back at the photograph. What was I thinking? But I was trying to find where I fitted.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it, about fitting in, because I always felt that I was born in the wrong family. I love my mum, by the way, and my dad. We're all good now. But there was times, my dad, he had a very tough upbringing, and he was very Victorian himself. I appreciate some of the toughness now because it's allowed me to endure certain things in life. But I run away a lot of times as well. One particular day, I think I was pushing him a little bit too far. And I remember I saw him flinch, and he was quick, and he was a big man, like strong guy, my dad. And I was quick, I was like a ferret, and I sprinted down the back garden, jumped over the fence, and he just caught me by my feet midair. So I come back down on the fence, hit the fence quite hard, which was another lesson. But I totally understand the thing about not feeling like I belonged and not understanding. And my dad wasn't there for a reason, that he was working a lot of the time. And so I would spend hours just drifting, walking around and trying to find what I wanted to do. What was your mindset at the time you left there and you was in London? Because it's kind of, I would imagine it's a mixture of excitement, but what was your goal? Like, where were you going?
So, so many questions in there. My mindset was, I'm on an adventure. I'm free. No one's checking up on me. I can do whatever I like. And I remember feeling that for a lot of years, that this is bloody great, quite honestly. No one can tell me what to do. I'm off. At the same time as slightly desperate, because I had no roots anywhere. I didn't feel like I belonged still. I wanted to be a social worker because I wanted to make everyone okay. I wanted to fix everything, and now I can see why. I started a little bit of that training and got bored very quickly. It just wasn't full on enough. I need to take on information fast. If you're too slow, you've lost me. So I ended up, the only thing I could do at school was draw. So I ended up working in art studios, and I was a runner for a while, and then I did some illustration. I was never very good.
Was that through connections, or did you kind of go to a job centre and find a...
I was walking down Wardour Street. There was a job centre on Wardour Street at the time, and I remember walking past. I didn't have a job at the time, and looked in the window, and there was a card in the window that said art studio runner. And I'm like, I'm getting that job if it kills me. I went home, I packed a suitcase, how embarrassing is this, of every piece of clothing I'd ever made, because I was just like making things. Every picture I'd drawn, every jumper I'd knitted, every dress I'd made. I just thought, I'm going to get this job. And of course, nobody goes to an interview with a suitcase of
pretty
stuff.
Inventive.
I just said that I want the job. Look, this is what I can do. I'll turn my hand to anything. I'll work harder than anyone. And they went, obviously, you've got the job. And that it was a horrible job. I hated it, but I did learn the ropes. It's proper old school. You start at the bottom of the ladder, and I got a little way up the ladder. I just wasn't good enough, if I'm honest. I was impatient. And of course, what had happened, which the bit that I haven't told you, was that when I was a kid at 6 or 7 years old, I'd watched television and seen rally cars, was transfixed by what I saw and thought, that's a pretty cool thing I can do when I grow up. Sort of parked it in the back of my mind. But fast forward many, many years, I'm in London, not knowing what I'm going to do with myself. And I remembered that I wanted to be a rally driver, and I phoned directory inquiries which was what you did in those days. That was our Google. And they said, I've got a rally school you can go to. So I went to a rally school. And that's another story, because that
was my next question,
that
actually.
day changed my entire life.
That's really incredible, because I always wanted to be a racing driver.
Did you?
Yeah, always. And I would practice. We would tie, little plastic cars, tie one to the bumpers of my friend's older brother's car, and they'd just drive around me, sliding the car around the back. Yeah, just loved it. Always loved it. Didn't have the money. Bought some motorbikes from a bit of hard work, and then started to buy and sell motorbikes at 13 and 14. And I just loved speed, and I loved moving. So I did dirt biking for 5 minutes. But what was interesting, what I think was a big difference, and I think that's really admirable of you, that I didn't have the mindset. So around me was, well, if you don't work hard, you're not going to get a job in a bank.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never be a racing driver because we
Mm-hmm.
have no money or connections, which is complete rubbish, as you've just proved. So I found all these escapes and fun things, which I really, really loved. And I kind of call it my meditation now, because I still have bikes and cars that when I drive, and you probably experience this as well, nothing else matters. You're in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel everything working in my body, especially if you lose traction and you're playing around. And that's my complete element.
Yeah, it became my happy place, but I had no idea.
But how did you, so you literally picked up the directory, phoned up.
So what you have to know is that I hit rock bottom. So I was my boyfriend was a heroin addict at the time. I was living in squats and squalor and horrible places and hard to let flats, and, on the 20th floor of a tower block in Bow. And I was living with some really rough people. I'd been in 2 homeless hostels for 2 years. I had experienced the dark side of life. And as exciting as it was, and as adventurous as it all became, I wanted more for myself. I'd been brought up in a quite well-to-do family, and this was absolutely not where I was meant to be. And I just had a spiral down, and I hit rock bottom, and I just had that. And I was in Farringdon Road in London, and I looked up, I saw a man cleaning windows, and to swear, I can remember thinking, if I don't sort my life out soon, that's the best I can hope for my life. I'm going to be cleaning windows. Sort your life out, Mallory. And I remember thinking that, not that there's anything wrong with cleaning windows. I wanted more for myself. Yeah. And I had a conversation with myself. I sort of hit rock bottom, bounced back and thought, you know what, you could do something stupid. 100% you can do something stupid. You're very capable of that. Or you could do something quite useful, positive. And just do this rally school thing, because you've always wanted to do it. Just get it done. And then you can consider doing something stupid.
What a moment.
So I phoned 192 and said, I want to be a rally driver. Type it in. And she went, I've not done this one before. She said, there's a rally school. I said, great, give me the number. I went to the rally school. I have no idea how I paid for it.
Where was this?
It was in Oxfordshire, weirdly, where I live now. And I went on this rally day, and I wasn't good at all. But I remember thinking, oh my God, for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I belong somewhere. I'd never been so happy in my life, doing handbrake turns and sliding around in a Mark II Escort on a gravel surface.
My person.
Honestly, I'm like, this is the best thing that anyone could ever do with a day. And I said to the instructor, whose name was Simon Davison, to this day he remains a good friend of mine, I said, I want to do this. I want to be a rally driver. He went, yeah, I know. Everyone says that. Anyway, drive safely home, get on with your life. And I said, no, I actually want to do this. And 12 years later, I was winning. I was the first woman in the world to drive a world rally car for Ford. And the 12 years from that day were unbelievable.
I remember it. It must have been an incredible journey. How do you get from having the conversation with Simon? What happens after? Because if you hit rock bottom, you made a decision, but that doesn't mean you're out of Dodge straight away. How did that process work, and what did you have to put in place?
In those days, banks had a bank manager behind a desk. Yeah. And my bank branch was in Highgate. I went into that Highgate branch and scrubbed myself up, and I said, I need to get a loan for a car. I didn't tell him it was a rally car. He gave me a bank loan. I went and booked another day at the rally school. I went back every week for a few weeks. I asked Simon if he could lend me his racing overalls and his helmet.
Wow.
I took him to London, took some photographs of me being a rally driver, which I wasn't. made some sponsorship brochures because at this point I'd been working in art studios. I did the sponsorship brochure. I made up stuff. I over-exaggerated stuff to say, I'm a great rally driver, sponsor me. I've never put so much effort into anything in my life. I got sponsorship for 2 years within 3 months.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
A guy called David Warren, who was a printing consultant, who just wanted to see his name everywhere. He said, I'll sponsor you. So he bought me a Mark II Escort. I competed in 2 championships, and that was the start of it. I make it sound straightforward. It was hard.
Oh, I can imagine.
I was prepared to do whatever anyone else did and a load more because I wanted this more than anything. And you know what I now know was fueling this thing? I remember getting in that rally car at the rally school thinking, my dad... Because I haven't told you, when I left home at 14, my dad wrote to me and said, you're a disgrace. I'm so embarrassed about you. I don't want anything to do with you. You're disowned.
Wow.
And that sort of sent me into this dark place in half of my head.
Yeah.
And that letter, I nor he knew was going to have a massively profound impact on my life, because all I wanted to do was make my dad proud. And when I got in the rally car, I'm thinking, oh my God, hang on a minute. If I could be a good rally driver, if I could win something, I reckon I could make my dad proud. Maybe I could win him back. Maybe I could get his attention again. I actually didn't see him for 20 years, from 14 to 30, early 30s. That's what I now know, looking back, drove me to work harder than anyone, put in more effort than anyone, stay longer, do whatever. And it became a mindset for me. If you want something really badly, look at what everyone else does, clock it, and then do 20% more.
It's so beautiful to hear, because at that time when you receive a letter like that, you can go 2 ways. You can hit the bottle, go that way.
I did. I went both ways. It's not a nice thing to be disowned by your father, who you think is amazing, although you're frightened of him. And all you want in the whole world is for him to show him, because he was stiff upper lip, Victorian. He wasn't affectionate, and didn't. No, my parents never said. At the best. Yeah, my parents never said I love you or anything like that. So I wanted more than anything in the world to flip the script. I wanted to turn it around. I didn't know that I would, but that's what I wanted, and it became the fuel for my fire. And it sounds really cheesy, but getting my father's approval, if I could just achieve something, I'm pretty sure this will make up for all the disappointment that I've been to him.
It's really incredible, because that was my drive for a long time.
Was it really?
Yeah. So I'm careful how I talk about my dad now, because I've said some things and I've realised that he only knew his way. And when I heard about his upbringing, I'm surprised. He's actually done incredibly well, and he was very firm, and he had an incredible temper, and he was cold, but it was how he was, and I understand that. But he came from his cousins all owned boxing gyms, and they was all boxers, and I did gymnastics, then I did trampoline as a kid. I just liked to move and fly and run around.
I did the same.
Did you?
Gymnastics and trampolining.
All my Bagger Awards.
How weird.
Like, yeah,
the Bagger Awards. Oh my God, yeah.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I just loved the freedom of moving. Didn't like anxiety or being fearful, and I had a lot of that growing up. And so I started to box. I went boxing at 13. Thought that looks pretty easy. I'll jump in the ring. Got absolutely hammered, like really badly. And I thought that, and we move on to yours, but at the time I thought boxing was about aggression and anger and stuff. And I realised it's really a skill. And I boxed for my county, won lots of trophies, and went for the British title a couple of times by the time I was 15.
Wow.
And I never felt pain. Once I only felt pain sparring with this guy Simon. It hit me so hard on the chin that my chin didn't hurt, the back of my brain hurt. But I had this fight, and I didn't know, I'm not a tough guy, I don't like fighting, don't like conflict. But I would, toe to toe, you couldn't hurt me. I would never go down, I never went down. But, and I kind of weirdly liked it, because I felt that I'm showing my dad I'm a man. and actually I'm probably the guy that he'd like to hang out with. And that was the little thing. And it's a weird drive. It's not an angry drive, but it's like this determination that you can't hurt me as much as I've been hurt. So I'm going to show you.
But also it's a physical display of almost what you're trying to get, his approval, his attention, whatever it was. That's for me what it was. And by doing something physical, you can photograph almost, you can show, it's really sad looking at it, that, we're both going to extreme lengths to get parental approval, but it's human nature, I guess.
But I feel that that's a positive again, because you're using a fuel in a positive way, because to learn to do something, driving or boxing, is incredible. Which moves on to, what on earth was you doing boxing in your 40s the first time?
Okay, so I've also loved boxing from a very young age, and I did some boxing training when I moved to London, like cheap gyms that you could just walk into and pay a couple of quid.
All boxing gyms were cheap back then.
Yeah, and you just walk in and do some stuff. And I wasn't very good. It was just a bit rubbish playing at it. But I've always loved the big fights. I've never been to Vegas to see a big fight. I've always wanted to. I get excited by the spectacle of the human form. And when you start to train and you realise quite how much there is to this, again, it was a bit like drivers. Like I want to at least achieve something with it. So it was in the context of I was married, and the marriage, I won't go into the boring story of the marriage, but it didn't work out. And my husband, the nerve, said he wanted to divorce me after all that had happened. And I was so angry. So it probably came from the anger, and I didn't know how to manage the anger, the disappointment. It was my second failed marriage. I felt so awful about myself. It was when there was a financial crash in 2008, 2009. I was on my backside with 2 little kids. I was desperate. And I knew that when I've got a lot of emotion, I need to focus it into something. And that I thought, do you know what, I'm going to learn to fight in a ring, because that means I've got to train hard. It means I'm going to hopefully manage this anger and whatever's going on inside of me. I'm going to get fit and healthy and start thinking straighter, because my kids need that. And so I threw myself into 2 to 3 hours of that extreme boxing training every day. And I said to the guy in the gym, just tell me when you think I'm ready to get in the ring. And it was 11 months. It was about 1,000 hours of training. And I thought, well, that's great, because they've told me I'm going to fight for 6 minutes, 3 2-minute rounds. That'll be a doddle after 1,000 hours. And of course, no one actually talked me through what's involved getting into the ring. So I'm walking to the ring to my motivational ring walk music, thinking I'm the bee's knees. And I step through the ropes. I'm 42 years old. My opponent is Kirsty from Coventry, apparently. She's 21. She's half my age. She's built like a brick outhouse. And I'm going, okay, this already looks a bit harder than I was expecting. And I stepped through the ropes and realised I knew I was up for 3 2-minute rounds, but it's 6 minutes. You'll know this. 6 minutes in the boxing ring is 6 hours. It really... Yeah. Just 6 minutes out there, parallel universe of time. The bell never rings. No one told me that. But Kirsty was, within seconds of the first round, she'd smack me on the face, and I'm on the canvas looking up her nostrils thinking, oh my God, what am I doing?
Had you sparred at this point?
I'd done loads of sparring. I'd done 11 months of sparring, training, sprinting, weights, everything. I'd never trained so hard in my life. I was fighting fit.
How did you feel getting punched in the face? Because a lot of people, it's amazing how you're describing it, because it looks so easy. People are like, oh, God, 2 minutes, I can hold my breath for as long as that.
Exactly.
It's completely different.
You can't.
You're a warrior. All your senses are up, aren't you? There's
no point in even describing it to somebody who hasn't experienced it, because you just can't imagine the fear, the adrenaline, the everything stuff that you feel when you step through those ropes. And of course, I'm on the floor looking up at her, and I guess in half a second I've bounced back up, and I've got that, I'm either going to run away because I'm now terrified, or I'm going to kill you. We've got the choice here. And it was that mindset of, there's only one, actually, Penny, there is only one option here. And I dug so deep inside myself, and I'm going, keep your hands up, because you're not going down again. And sort of 2 hours later, the bell rings, and I'm like, I can't punch a paper bag now. I've given everything in 2 minutes. I've nothing left. And they, of course, they pushed me out for the second and third round. I don't quite know how I completed those rounds, but it was the most extraordinary experience. And my respect now for anybody, whatever the outcome, who gets into a ring is off the scale. And of course, you do this stuff once, and you think, okay, tick the box. I'm over my divorce. That's
I'll have
fine.
a warm soapy bath
But then I go and agree to fight Monica Galetti, the MasterChef lady who's of Maori descent. So she does the hacker as I'm getting into the ring.
Not intimidating.
But she was an amazing match. She was same height, same weight, same age, same everything. That was an extraordinary fight. One with headgear, one without headgear.
So you fought with headgear and without headgear?
Yeah, I'd rather fight without.
Me too. It hurts more with headgear. You can't see properly.
It just gets
and it's
in
a
your
distraction.
Way. Just get it off.
Yeah.
But that fight, those were the regs for that fight. So
why did you fight twice?
I fought once because I needed to resolve my anger issues, and because I loved boxing. I fought the second time because I thought maybe now I have some level of skill. I won't do it again. It's too much.
1,000 hours of training for that is it's a lot of drive, but a wonderful achievement. How was you after? What did you feel after?
Well, you'll know. You don't feel the pain in the ring.
No.
You wake up the next day and you blow your nose and you, oh my God. My face was sore. I couldn't touch my face. I was bruised everywhere. And I felt the pain for the next few days. But in the ring,
it's amazing.
Nothing.
Adrenaline is an amazing drug because you don't feel a thing.
Unbelievable.
But 2 days after, his shoulders, the rope burns, the whatever. It's amazing.
And my nose, oh my God, my nose was so sore. But I'm not very good at doing things once. I think, that I've done it once, right, tick the box, won't do it again, and I always go and do it again. That's just me. I think I want to do it better.
When you done that after that, how did you become a keynote speaker? And especially like, an expert on mental toughness. So
I do the art stuff very badly for a little while. I do the rally driving stuff for about 12 years on and off. I'm also invited to present car programs on TV. Best job in the world. So I did Driven on Channel 4. I was then presented the World Rally Championship for Channel 4. I did loads of the classic car show, the road show, the used car road show, every show. And of course, I didn't have a family. When I worked on a TV show, they became my family.
Yeah.
The sound man was my brother, and, the director was my uncle, and these were my family. And anybody that's worked on a TV show will understand when the show gets decommissioned, when they say no more, your entire world falls apart. But for me, I lost my family as well as my job. It devastated me.
Was that over that whole period? Because I did the same. I presented a show called Britain's Next Top Model, and they canned it, and I felt the same, but it wasn't that long.
Yeah, well, Driven we did for, 4 or 5 years or something. World Rally I did for 3 years or something. Used car road show I did for longer. They were all utterly devastating for me when they stopped. More so than they would have been for a normal person with a normal sort of support group. My world just fell apart.
It's kind of abandonment again, isn't it?
It is complete abandonment. That's what it felt like for me. But also, couple that, throw in a divorce as well, and another divorce. And, when you lose your job in a recession and you're self-employed and you don't really have a CV because you can't really do anything normal, you drive cars and present shows. Well, it's not going to get you an income. So somebody asked me to speak at an event back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, and I said, I've got nothing to say, so probably not. And they said, no, please, please, please come and speak at this event. And I spoke, and I mean, looking back, I would have been absolute rubbish, but somebody in that audience said, could you speak at my event? And then I ended up speaking at events.
But you say it as if it's casual, but that's one of the biggest fears of human beings is
yeah, but they were going to pay me, and I didn't have any money. I had to put I'm quite good at facing the fear and doing it anyway. Quite good. I respond quite well to pressure. So the thought of getting on a stage and speaking, obviously, just like anybody, like, no way, but I got to feed these kids and I got to pay the rent. So I'm going to have to do it. And, honestly, looking back, I was shocking. But when all the other jobs, just everything I tried to do just stopped happening, I'm like, do you know what? I think this is the only thing left I could possibly do. What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Except for, work in a supermarket, which I know I wouldn't get on with very well.
It's funny you go to extremes because I did the same. So I was really good at my job modelling and did some movies and TV presenting. But I'd never transmit that to be saying, I can maybe do another show or I could do something else. I'd always say, well, I'll have to be a dustman or I'll have to go and work on that. There was nothing in the middle.
Yeah. And that's exactly. And if I do something, I want to stand out. And this is all because of my dad.
Yeah.
I now know if I do something, I just need to do it a little bit more to stand out, because that will get me the attention, the affection, the whatever it is that I've.
Is that a positive thing now?
No,
Because
not always.
Not always.
Not always. It's just the way I've become. I mean, obviously, I'm quite old now. I need to just give myself a break. But
when you saw your dad again after 20 years, how was that?
It was so weird. And because my dad was stiff upper lip, don't talk about anything, the last 20 years weren't discussed. He didn't know I'd been homeless. He didn't know I'd been on my absolute backside. He didn't know anything about my life. But I contacted him when I had Georgie, my first baby. And so we talked about the baby and the weather. And no eye contact. I met him several times. And then I had another little girl, Chooch, Charlotte. And it was all just super awkward and weird. Yeah. And I couldn't ever talk to him naturally, just in a relaxed way. I was always very mindful of every word that came out of my mouth, and it was all very weird. And then he died, and I was the only person that was around to clear his flat. Have you ever cleared the home of somebody who's died?
I have been in places like, yeah. My father actually used to work as a funeral director for the last 15 years, yeah.
Clearing the house of a dead person is really hard work, because you don't know what to do with anything and you feel guilty about throwing everything away. And I didn't know who was in the photographs. I didn't know what was important and what wasn't. And I got to his desk. I did take most of it to the tip, kept a couple of pieces of furniture for old time's sake, because I still felt guilty about everything. And I went through his desk and I found in one of the drawers a whole pile of press cuttings of me driving and winning stuff and on telly. And
wow.
I had this mental image of him with a little pair of scissors cutting stuff out of the paper and folding it up and putting it in a drawer. And then I felt so sad. Like, mate, you could have been part of this.
Yeah.
I've been there trying to do stuff to impress you. You've been cutting bits out of the paper, all a bit tragic. But in a funny way, I kind of ticked the box, like he'd noticed.
Yeah.
I had got his attention. He never said anything. He never said he was proud of me or loved me or anything like that. But I took that as a win. I had achieved the goal.
God, I would have melted at that point if I saw those photographs.
I didn't know what to. I thought, do I throw them away? Do I keep them? I thought, you know what? I don't need bits of paper. I threw them away. I'm like, it's the symbolism. It's this moment in my head that matters. The bits of paper don't matter.
That's the thing. It's about you logging it inside, isn't it? My dad said to me, he was proud of me. I think it was last year or the year before, the first time ever. And I kind of was like, do I react to that or do I wanted to hear it again just to make sure I heard it.
What was he proud of you for doing?
It was actually about my sobriety. It was actually about me not drinking. I don't usually outwardly celebrate it, but, and funny enough, like your father, my dad didn't know all the dark, he had no idea about all the dark stuff. And I think in his eyes, he kind of, my mum saved all cuttings from papers and stuff like that.
Oh my God, such a similar story.
Yeah. She's got, in fact, she was my probably number one fan. Her loft is full of stuff. And she'd sometimes say, like, oh, your dad's really proud of you. I was like, he is? What do you mean? He never says anything. And so when he said it, it kind of blew me away. And I feel that he's now 84 and he's really softened with my kids. So I say softened, but he never picked my young one up till about a year. And I basically was changing the nappy. I said, can you just hold her for a second? And he kind of held her like that. Bless him. But he's really good round her now. He's really softened. It's nice. It's really nice to see. But that blew me away to hear that word. I was like, couldn't you have said that when I was 5, 6, 7 playing football?
But you got to hear it.
Yeah.
And I know it's not, probably wasn't soon enough for you, but I'm really pleased for you that you heard it.
It kind of was a big closure, actually. And I know that, and actually, to be honest, I know I always wanted to hug my dad, and I hugged him once when I come out of rehab in 2004, and it was like cuddling concrete, and it was really awkward. And after that, I accepted that I don't want to push him to make him uncomfortable. So a handshake we do a handshake, and that's good enough. What is mental toughness?
So mental toughness, turns out, is what I've been developing from the beginning, which I didn't know had a name, and it's your ability to manage life, stress, pressure, challenges, changes, all the stuff that we get bombarded with that's never going to stop. And some people manage it well, and some people struggle with it. Some people, set goals, smash them. Some people have horrendous trauma, disaster, bounce back from it, and some people can't. And I was always, when I was driving, fascinated by why some drivers kept on winning and some didn't. I want to be like the ones that win. All the things that had happened throughout my life, I had been developing mental toughness, the sense of control you have of your life. Well, I've been out of control several times. I know what it feels like. It feels horrible. Human beings love the sense of control. So I want to get everything on my terms in a way, like reel it in. I want to be on top of, I want to be driving the car, not the passenger. I've been faced, as we all are, faced with some challenges. Some of mine are a bit weirder than most, but
what
quite
do you mean by weirder?
Well, like, where are you going to live tonight? Where are you going to sleep?
Yeah.
That's not a challenge that hopefully most people experience.
I think there's probably a lot at the moment that do experience that.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I can flip. I'm quite good at flipping. I've learnt to flip the script. Like, this is really bad moment, but there's something in here that's okay that I'm not seeing. I've just got to keep looking to find that nugget of gold.
Where did that come from? Because this is a key thing about. I wanted to move on to mindset. It's to see that, it's to know that this won't last forever. But to find a little golden nugget or hope, that bit is key.
So, one of the expressions that I have used, strangely, only in the last few years, but I've always had the attitude of, this storm too shall pass.
Yeah.
We're all going to have some horrible moments, but the beautiful thing about life is that it keeps on flipping, changing. So what is horrendous today, it will pass, whether it's a day or a week or a year. And so when something that you're not expecting sideswipes you, and I've just been that, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It will pass.
Do you remember the moment that happened? Because that's quite a key
I think it happened when I was really small, when my mum would get carted off to the loony bin.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be okay. She'll come back. She'll come back. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I just had that. I had to. It was like a survival thing for me. And then it became a challenge. Like, how can I make something great out of this problem? And it's just become I guess it's like anything. You practice it a lot, you get better at it. And I've been quite good. I'm quite disciplined in my head. That's another reason that I seem to have got through stuff, is that I'm very focused and very disciplined. I make promises to myself. I don't break them.
I read the other day that buffalo is the only animal that will turn around and run into the storm because it knows that on the other side is clear blue skies. And I thought that was amazing when I read that.
I've never heard that.
Because I try and do the same. There's moments where in my life where I haven't listened to my gut, and it's caused me tremendous pain and really bad decision making. Not many times.
But don't you think your instinct, your gut, is the most reliable form of communication your body can give you? Because you know when something's not right, it's because it's not right.
100%. And I studied, I did a black belt in a martial art, which they always talk about the gut as a dentier and the first brain. And they're actually proving it now. My wife is a scientist, was talking earlier, proves that when we walk in a room, your gut bacteria talks to mine. So there's a communication that actually goes on. And the Chinese have been talking about it for years in martial arts. And I have such a compass in my gut. But being cocky when I was younger, I made some wrong decisions because
You ignore it.
I wanted to belong, which overpowered my gut feeling of this is probably not a good idea. And I wanted to be noticed. And that drive got me in trouble. But now, listen to my gut. I absolutely trust it 100%.
Yeah. I've come to that realization that it's just, I have to rely on it. Something happened a couple of years ago that my gut was screaming at me, and I listened eventually to my gut, and I made, even when you don't want to make the decision, you have to. And sometimes it takes more mental toughness to walk away from something, to say no. But when your instinct is pulling you, your gut is screaming at you, there's a reason.
Yeah. Especially in relationships, jobs. There was a job, I was up for a job. It was an incredible amount of money doing a TV show, filming in New Zealand. And I just knew, I think I was like 5 years sober at the time, I just knew that my sobriety would be on the line. And if I lost that personally, I would have lost the job anyway. It wasn't worth going for.
Wow.
And it was a real powerful feeling because I knew I was quite attracted to prestige. So when you're a fashion model, you feel like you're a legend because, you get makeup on, they walk you with an umbrella to go somewhere.
Feels so special.
You feel special. Everyone's talking about how you are. They're screaming your name. It's amazing. But you're just selling a product, really. And if you're not there, someone else will be there. Yeah, literally that. Yeah, exactly. And they're not holding the umbrella because of you. It's in case the makeup runs and then they're in trouble. So it was really interesting to decipher the whole thing. But I always went for prestige because I felt like the actual feeling of that is that I'm wanted. You like me. I'm special. So like what you experienced when the show went, usually on a good trip or a fashion shoot, I would feel devastated the next day and didn't understand why. And my coping mechanism was to go out and party and drink, giving you the illusion you're a legend again and everything's fine. So it's interesting because I had to do lots of work to find out why I do things consciously or unconsciously and tried to override that and be happy with stuff. So that's why I think I've shuffled through so many things that I've got a really good, strong gut today. What would you advise someone that I suffered from lots of anxiety, which is basically fear in my book? What would you say to someone who's listening to this that would be of the view which I would be like, oh, it's okay for you to because you've had lots of achievements and done really well. And I'm stuck here. I don't have anything. I've got no options. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I now know I'm not special. I'm just an ordinary kid who's prepared to put stuff on the line. I'm not really that fussed about failing because I know I'm going to learn something. So I don't have the fear of failure that a lot of people have. I don't mind having a go at stuff. I don't care if I look stupid. I don't care if it doesn't work out. But I had a go, and I will always learn. So I'm always going to win.
That's a really big thing to say, by the way, is to actually do it because you're going to win because you're doing something rather than not doing it and having too much fear too.
I've always, and again, it all stems from where I came from, but I was always aware that all the opportunities are out there and I can choose to grab them, see them, walk past them, ignore them. But, I've got as much chance as anyone else of doing anything. And if I tried 20% harder than anyone else, then surely I've got a chance. So as much as I had lacked confidence and was super shy, still lack confidence, I'm still shy, strangely, I was prepared to push stuff just to see what could happen, and less conscious about or less worried about the consequences. So that's why I've done some of the stuff I've done. I'm not special, you're not special, we're just human beings who have a go at stuff. And you've clearly done so much work on yourself, and I'm in awe of how well you understand yourself. You've done a fantastic job.
It was needed.
Well, but you did it. And most people might avoid it because it's hard, it's painful. So when people say, I get anxious or I get worried, I'm not going to say anything that's going to change anything. But all I would say is that the word motivation comes from the Latin word movere, to move. You're scared, you're anxious, just try something, just a little bit. Just try a little bit. And if you do take an action, move in some way, something that takes you forward, teeny weeny bit, you do a little bit more, you build momentum, it builds your motivation, it starts to build your confidence, and it all comes together. So it's just, for me, about just push through the pain. It might be scary, you might not feel confident, you might have anxiety. I think it's just a form of the fear of failing, probably, or looking stupid.
Yeah.
People say public speaking, I couldn't possibly do that. Well, why? It's not life-threatening. You just don't want to look stupid. You don't want to mess up. That's really what you're scared of.
That's really key. So I realised after doing lots of work that I love this acronym. You've probably heard of it, that fear is false evidence appearing real. And I sat with that for a long time thinking, what does that mean? And there are such clever animals, aren't we, that we can picture something that hasn't happened yet and feel the actual emotions, whether it's excitement or disaster or devastation, and can react to that visual thought process. And that, when I really realised that was key for me, because I can sit there today and think of something and go, I'm not going to go. And say to myself, why are you not going? Because you just pictured something that hasn't happened yet, didn't go your way.
And that's why visualization is so powerful, because it can work both ways. I used to visualize holding trophies on my car, stood on my bonnet of my car. And I didn't know visualization was a thing. I just did it.
That was natural.
I just did it. I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
Anything I ever did, I just imagined what it would feel like. And I just did it without anyone telling me to do it. It was just the thing I did. And then I realized that it was quite powerful. And then I read about visualization and go, oh my God, that's what I've been doing all my life. And so it is powerful, because your brain, they say, doesn't know what's been imagined and what's happened.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine it 20 times, your brain thinks it's happened, which means when you actually come to do it, you've sort of done it 20 times already. The power of our mind to use that visualization skill, because I don't want it to sound too woo-woo and weird, because I'm not like that.
Yeah.
But I absolutely know visualizing stuff makes stuff happen.
Totally agree. And when someone told me that before, I was like, yeah, we're going to start burning candles and wearing sandals at the same time.
I'm out of here.
I'm not like that. But visualization really works for me as well. And I actually did it unbeknownst to myself with boxing. I used to do it all the time. I used to just sit there just watching myself as if I'm fighting someone else, because I love the feeling as well, like the movement and just being aware.
I mean, I don't know who's listening to this, or like there'd be somebody out there listening to this who is thinking, I wonder if that's nonsense. And I would just say, try it. If there's something you're after, something you want to, place you want to be, a position you want to be in, something in life you're after, if you just intensely focus on it in your mind, close your eyes, go for whatever environment suits you, but just relay this thing over and over in your head. Imagine what you feel like, what you'll be wearing, how you stand, how you'll speak. Imagine, seeing yourself from up there, over there. It is properly powerful, and it really it brings stuff to you.
I think it really does, because you're kind of prepared. When I started to model, I had no idea about the fashion business, never travelled, been abroad once. And
were you spotted by somebody? Did somebody
yeah,
tap you on the shoulder?
I was actually spotted twice on the King's Road, walked into a couple of agencies and pretty much laughed at. And I just thought it'd be a weird business anyway. But my mum actually sent a photograph off when I was in hospital, having my appendix out, to a newspaper and a model agency that she read that they're doing this competition. And I just went up there. I was like, I feel actually hopeless right now. I mean, I still had my stitches in. Went up to the event at Limelight near Shaftesbury Avenue.
I used to party in Limelight.
Me too.
Shaftesbury Avenue.
Yeah, a lot. Maybe I saw you there.
Maybe.
I used to love that club, but I went there, won this competition, never turned up because I thought, it's not for me. I only went because it said you win clothes and a holiday, and I just wanted a holiday and a new wardrobe. And Tandy, the agent, was very funny, because she's like, you're not getting anything until you come in. So I suggest you come in. I didn't know how to eat in restaurants, didn't know how to dress. And when I went to the agency, she looked me up and down and she said, well, you can change that outfit. Let's go shopping. And she was really tough, but I got her and I loved her. And she was my drive.
How old were you at this point?
I was 21, but a young 21. And it was, I loved what you said about the 20%. I was like, I'm giving this everything and more because this is my chance to get out of Dodge. And I want to know what everything is and how the world works. And I did. And I just lived everywhere in Paris, Milan, New York, Miami, and just did it non-stop for 8 years. And then slowed down a bit. And then I burnt myself out and went into rehab, like I said, and then started again. So you've done so many really big challenges in your life. Have you got any more challenges coming up?
Yeah, I have. I've got one final hurrah. I'm going to row the Atlantic Ocean in a teeny weeny boat in December 2026. I was meant to do it last year and that didn't work out. So I've now got a new team, 2 boys, 2 girls, and honestly, the smallest boat you can possibly imagine. And we row for 50 days from Spain to Antigua. It's rowing 2 hours on, 2 hours off, all day, all night.
That sounds terrifying to me.
Sharks, whales, dolphins, waves, capsize. I am scared of water, Paul. So this, for me, is the most frightening thing I could.
Did that come to you, or did you pursue that?
I heard about this organised event that rows across the Atlantic. About 40-odd boats do it every December. I heard about it. Then a friend of mine did it and got a world record, and I was so jealous. I absolutely have got to do that. And it takes a lot of time, money, effort, all those things I'm quite good at. So I put together a team. And anyway, like I said, that didn't work out, but this one will. It's an enormous undertaking. So we won't get our boat until April next year. We'll practice for 2 years before we set off.
Are you training already?
I'm training every day in the gym.
I mean, I can see you are, but is it specific training for that?
Well, so rowing, don't like water. I'm not really interested in rowing. So this will be interesting, won't it? So rowing, the ocean rowing is not kind of full on effort. It's just, you just have to endure 2 hours on, 2 hours off, all day, all night. So your posterior chain is what you need to develop. So lots of weightlifting, lots of deadlifts, anything that will strengthen my glutes and my hamstrings, and just so that my body is as robust as it can be. So I've been training for some years, and I will continue.
What about mindset preparation? Because if you're scared of the water and that's what you'll be seeing for a long time.
I don't even get my hair wet in the swimming pool.
Seriously?
Yeah. I like to touch the bottom and touch the sides. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And then when we can't see land, and it'll be the first time ever when we leave Spain, that I know that I can't touch I think the Atlantic's 4 miles deep in places, so I won't be touching the bottom. It'll be a very weird feeling. I'm not sure that you can prepare for that, but what we can do is just keep rowing we'll be rowing in the south coast of Wales a lot. I don't know what to expect. And of course, because I talk about a mental toughness all the time, people are expecting me to be the best. Yeah. And I might be the worst. And I honestly don't know what to expect. But one of the guys on the boat is a sea rescue expert. That's great.
That's handy to have.
And he's a boaty man. He knows everything about boats. He's a fireman as well. So two of the guys are firemen. My best friend Susie and I, we're quite good at endurance. We've done lots of sort of physical endurance challenges over the last 20 years.
Do you know what one of my fears are, weirdly, in that is not really the water. I've had the fear of not seeing the land because I've did some sailing for work. But being in a small space with people and toilet.
Bucket.
Yeah, see, I'd struggle.
I don't think you would. Chris, the sea rescue guy, he said, I've pooed in front of so many people over the years, climbing mountains, and so have I. I've climbed some of the biggest mountains in the world. You just get over it so quick. We've all got to do it. You do it face, everyone's got their back to you. I don't think we're going to care that much after a while.
I have a friend who tried to get me over. I have two things: is heights, which I tried to get over doing certain things, and I actually did do them. But a friend of mine, he literally was like, "Okay, go to the toilet. I'm going to leave the door open." I'm like, "I can't do it." He said, "You must do it. You do everything else. At least get over this phobia." I was like, "I just can't do it."
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll all feel like that at the beginning, but we will have to get over it. And once we've done it, we've done it.
Fair enough. Why do you say that's your kind of last hurrah, your last big thing?
Because at some point I have got to stop trying to stand out or I think I'm still trying to impress myself. I'm still that 7-year-old kid who's trying to get approval. And, I'm going to be 60 when I row the Atlantic. Surely, Penny Mallory, you can put your feet up. Surely that's it. I don't know.
I don't think it's in your genes.
I don't know. I'm so used to pushing myself. I don't know how I won't, but I'm guessing that maybe once I've done that, I give myself a pass to not do it anymore. But I actually I enjoy the training for stuff. I enjoy the event and the feeling when we get to Antigua. I don't think we'll be able to beat it. So it's quite addictive.
The only reason I ask you is because what I try to do is I've been addicted to so many things, good things, whether it's training, modeling. I was obsessed with being, and I was not the best looking guy, best physique, but I was the same. I literally would knock on doors and move to Paris, move to Le Mans, go back. And I just was on the move and move and move. And I would look at people and think, they'd say, I'm just going to stay here a couple of nights. And I'm like, whilst you're staying there, I'm going to be banging on the door for a job and I'm going to do the best I can do. So that drive really served me, actually. It blew up when I burnt myself out because I didn't realise about a balance. So my goal was to be as balanced as possible. And what was really hard was to learn to sit still. And I'm saying this because a lot of people struggle with this. But I was fearful of what I was thinking. So my fear, I didn't even know, it wasn't conscious, was what am I going to think if I sit still? What's going to come up? And usually the first lot of things with people is rubbish, negative, it's not great. But after that is real positive thinking. It's really interesting. It's kind of like, I describe it as like a test tube, and all the adversity and abuse and different things I've had in my life, I've pushed down, and I pushed it really far down, like you couldn't get it even further down. And on top of that, I did drinking drugs, loads of things, just to make sure it's even further down. And this is all in hindsight. So I was like, what if I stop and pull the lid off? What happens? What happens? And I did stop and pull the lid off. And one of the first things was I'd like to take my life. And then once that passed and made a decision not to do that, I had, I went through an array of painful emotions that I'd experienced in my life. And along with those, then came a thought process that jumped onto, well, that's because of this and that's because that, all negative. And when I went through that and let that go, someone showed me a formula of writing out all my resentments, my fears, everything. And it was a really amazing experience because it allowed me to take what was physical and emotion out onto paper, get rid of it. And my experience was, once I'd done that, it was almost like an exorcism. All of the noise stopped. And I realized how busy my brain had been. And that I realized that I'm not my thinking. Can't control the first thought, but you can control the second one, like what you do when you said you turn something into a positive. And so my goal is to be balanced for me, because I know that I'm like a wind-up toy that you can just wind me up and I'm gone and I won't stop till my batteries are out. So for me personally, I try to find a balance. And it's served me in many ways of not making bad decisions, but it's also, I have to be careful because there's certain environments or certain things I've chose not to do because I felt I was dangerous, and before I'd have made that decision. So financially it would have been a better decision. But I always go back, for me personally, to be like, to have a clear mindset and mental health.
When I hear the words mental health, I think about depression and anxiety, which is just the way I default to that stuff. So I don't talk about myself as a mental health speaker. I'm a mental toughness speaker. And that's more about looking forward, improving your life and not being... So I don't go to the dark depression, anxiety area of mental health. I'm much more positive, looking forward, and mental toughness, which will get you through stuff. I mean, obviously they're connected, but that's the way I sort of define because I'm quite often referred to as a mental health speaker. And I go, no, actually, I don't think I am.
There is a difference. And I think that's so valuable to hear someone like you, is because it's driven, it's functional, it's moving, instead of sort of wallowing in stuff. Yeah.
It's all good forward stuff, not dark backward stuff.
I think that's great.
So I read a book some years ago now, and it talked about how getting a balance is the worst thing you can do. And I thought, this is interesting. Everyone always talks about balance. Let me read on. And it basically said, if you keep everything up in the air and everything sort of just where you want it to be, you're not excelling at anything, and you're not, everything's just so. You're not going to achieve anything. You need to get everything out of balance and do something extreme. Put all your focus and your time and your attention in one thing, and then you'll be brilliant at it. And that's what I did. I think I must have read this like when I was driving. It's like, right, everything else has to go. I'm not going to have any balance in my life. I don't need friends. I don't need social stuff. I'm just going to drive. And I'm just going to have one thing. And that worked really well for me. And of course, now I'm thinking, now I understand why I became a bit of a nightmare, because I didn't have any balance. But I've been always a bit of an extreme person. So I am the worst person to talk to about achieving a balance, because I get a bit bored with the balance. I like things a little bit more all over the place.
I totally agree. And my successful times have been because of that unbalance. But as I'm getting older, in my 50s, and I'm a father now, maybe I'll explain it a different way. The balance is in my thought process and my mood around things, so that I can, for example, if I train, I still box. I have a torn ligament at the moment because I've gone too crazy on the bag. But I will train really hard. So it won't take out what I'm doing. And like we work really hard on the podcast and do stuff. So it doesn't make you numb. It's just a little bit more like, I won't tear two shoulders at the same time and my pecs, which I would have done before. Yeah. So I think, and I think, do you know what? I think it works for different people. Talking to you, I think it's a real positive thing, because it's a drive that a lot of people don't have.
Well, the thing is, when you've experimented with doing it and it works for you, then you think, well, I'll just apply that to everything.
Yeah.
So you do everything sort of to excess, because actually it's kind of worked for me quite well.
Yeah.
Not in everything, I have to say. But on the whole, overdoing stuff, going a little bit further than most, it's worked out pretty well for me. And that's difficult when you then have the conversation of balance. I don't want too much balance.
Yeah. And that's why all of us are good, because I think that we're all different people, and what works for others might not work for someone else, or what their desire is.
Yeah.
But that's what I think is great. But I think what I would say is, there's been moments in my life where I'd felt like I wanted that super drive when I felt really negative. I remember in lockdown with my little one, she was probably 3 months old, standing at the back door, and I don't know where it came from. I had tears coming down my eyes, and I apologised for her for bringing into this world. And it lasted for about 2 minutes, and I shook my head off, and I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to be the best dad. I'm going to do this. So I used that again, I guess, for a drive to go forward.
It's difficult when you've got that sort of personality where you've had to, I'm not sure that there is any particular answer to any of this stuff. We're all different, every single one of us. What the right answer for you won't be the right answer for me or whoever's listening. That we're all individual, completely individual. We respond differently to stuff. So I'm not sure that there is any piece of advice or any way to live your life, except to be really self-aware and really understand who you are and what you respond well to. What's good for you.
And I think the best thing, advice as well, what you said today, is the movement thing. As soon as you make a move, get out the door.
Get out of bed.
Then you meet people, things change. Your mindset will change because you're already driving.
But you think how your confidence increases if you just give something a go. You're a bit scared, a bit nervous, a bit anxious of it. You give it a tiny little go. Go, the sky didn't fall in. That was not so bad. And you do it again. You do it, and your confidence builds. So just taking some action, however tiny, but repeatedly doing it. Yeah.
Thanks, Penny. It's been so nice to have you on.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Stride Foundation. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please head over to www.stridefoundation.com where you can find links to resources that may help. You can also make a donation. Please make a donation. It will help us bring to you more episodes. And if you enjoyed This Is Powerful, please rate, review, and follow the podcast to share it with your friends, your family, anyone you can, and head over to social media. I always love to see and hear how you react to the episodes, and it's so helpful for our content to be shared. Thank you also to my beautiful wife, Dr. Federica and Marty, the best producer, Shannon Delwich, to Henry, you know who you are, and to Emma Long, who does all the hard work in the background. And there's a whole catalogue of episodes wherever you get your podcasts. But did you know you can also watch it on YouTube? Just search for This Is Powerful with Paul Scolfer.